All right, finally, you have pretty much made it to the end of the history part of this grid. This is going to be part of your assessment. You will have a test part, a paper test, just like before, where you will be tested pretty much on everything on your vocab sheet, with the exception of a couple things that I've crossed off that you will see when you fill in the last part of your vocab sheet. But you'll also do what we would call a skills-based assessment, where I will be testing you on some skills that you have, and it will relate to what you learned about. Okay? All of your assessments that I test you on skills will look just like this. You will have this side, and then the back will be a rubric. I'm just going to lay down exactly what I'm looking for this assignment. And this is one of those things that if you don't pass it, then you can always redo it. But please take your time. Pick the mode of presentation that fits your strengths, not which is the easiest. Okay, I give you choice because I want you to do what you're the best at, because my expectations are higher when I let you pick whatever you want. All right, so reading through the backstory, the legacy of Reconstruction is one of the most disputed topics in American history. Some argue that there's no doubt that it was a success because of what African Americans were able to accomplish and overcome during the time period. Others argue that it was a failure because of the overwhelming violence against African Americans and Republicans. So you saw a lot of good things. You saw the Freedmen's Bureau. You saw all that came with radical Reconstruction and African Americans and their ability to hold office. There was a lot of good things that came from Reconstruction. They gained the right to vote. But with the history lab especially, and even with a little bit during Johnson's plan, you saw some really bad things happen, especially to African Americans more than anyone. So your task is, do you think Reconstruction should be remembered as a success or a failure? You must pick one side or the other. You are going to develop a thesis statement. If you don't know what a thesis statement is, it's usually the last sentence in your introductory paragraph that pretty much tells us what, if you're writing a paper, for instance, it tells us what your paper is going to be about. Okay, so for instance, it would say, I believe Reconstruction was a success because, or I believe Reconstruction was a failure because. There's always that because. You never want to forget that because. That's essential. But you are going to use everything that you've learned in this grid, all these materials that you have, to support your point, whether it be specific things from your lab, whether it be from things from level 2, level 1, whatever, you're going to pull that specific stuff is what I'm looking for. Okay, now if you look at in the bottom right hand corner, you have your targets. Your targets are what you are graded on for this assignment. Number 1, your ability to develop a thesis statement that is clear and has a key idea. Number 2, that you can cite specific textual evidence that supports thesis and analysis of primary and secondary sources. I will explain what all these mean when I look at the rubric, and then create a presentation with minimal conventional errors. Now, you can do this in 4 different ways. You can tell me whether or not you felt Reconstruction was a success or a failure in 4 different ways, but these are the only 4 modes of presentation. These are only 4 ways. Number 1, you can do an Animoto video presentation. Just go to animoto.com, sign up, and make it there. You can go to Piktochart.com and make an infographic. There's pre-made templates, and you plug your information in them. You can do a Flipgrid presentation. This should be a well-rehearsed, written-out presentation. Okay, well-rehearsed, meaning you're not just reading off a paper, you're not covering up your face. Think of it as if you're getting in front of the class and presenting to the class your findings. Okay, that's essentially what you'll be doing in this Flipgrid presentation. I will be the only one to see the Flipgrid. Okay, or if you're a really strong writer, you can do a 1-page minimum of a 1-page essay, single-spaced. Okay, whichever you feel you could do the best at, that is what you pick. Again, I have high expectations because I let you pick your mode of presentation. I will do this in every single assessment that I give you. I let you pick which way you want to present the information. Okay, now looking at the back side, which would be your rubric. So this is your rubric. Your 3 targets are off to the left. This is the things that are here are what you need to do to get a 3. okay, to meet your target. This is part of that standards-based learning thing you learned about in the grid, the first grid. You need to develop a thesis statement that is clear and has a key idea. So number one, it's very clear whether or not you think it's a success or a failure. And number two, the key idea is the because. Okay, you don't just say, I think Reconstruction was a success. That would be a 2 out of 4 because you did not give me a key idea, meaning the because. Okay, if you gave me a very brief because, well, you gave me the because and you can get a 3. If you went in depth with your thesis, then you'll be a 4. Okay? You need to cite specific textual evidence that supports the thesis and analysis of primary and secondary sources. So this is where I'm looking at, this is where you support your success or failure stance. Okay, and I want specific examples from what you learned in this grid. So maybe you're pulling specific information from your lab or your one-pager or some of the primary sources you looked at in level number 2, something from a screencast, but specific examples. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. And then finally, you have minimal conventional errors. So spelling, grammar, all those conventional things, they are solid. Okay, what that means is you can make a few conventional errors. You can have 2 or 3, maybe 4, depending on the mode of presentation. If you're writing a one-page essay, you might be able to get away with a couple more than if you're just doing an infographic. Okay, a couple mistakes, you get a 3. If you're perfect, you get a 4 if you have absolutely no conventional errors. Okay, so that is what you're going to be doing for this presentation. You are going to turn it in on Google Classroom. So you go to the Turn In tab, you click your period, and you turn it in. Okay, but before you turn it in, and listen carefully, before you turn it in, you are going to grab one of the peer assessment sheets off the counter, and you are going to have a classmate assess your presentation. Okay, and they are going to essentially grade you. If they feel, you didn't do this very good, before you turn it into me, jump back into it and fix it. Okay? If you have questions, please let me know.